So by the end of this video, you would have created this cool AR experience where you can scan an image to spawn any character of your choice and control it using a joystick. And the best part, you can do this in about 15 minutes. Alright then, let's get started. So to begin with, you need to have Unity software downloaded. If you don't have it already, you can visit their website and download Unity Hub for free. Once you have the software installed, you can use this platform to manage different projects and different versions of Unity Editor. Now, as you can see here, I have already installed the latest version of Editor that's available for me. If you're doing it for the first time, you can navigate inside Install Editor and here download the latest version that's available to you and make sure it has the tag LTS, which stands for long-term support. Now, before installing, it will ask you to choose the modules. Make sure to select Android build support with OpenJDK, Android SDK and NDK tools, and along with that, make sure to select Windows build support IL2CPP and install the editor. Alright, once you have your editor installed, you can navigate inside projects, create a new project, make sure to select the right editor version, select Universal 3D Core Render Pipeline, give your project a name and create the project. Alright, so once we have the project open, we can now import all the packages and resources that we'll be using to create this AR application. So for that, navigate inside Windows Package Management Package Manager. Here, select Unity Registry, look for the AR Foundation package and install it. Next, search for the Google AR Core XR plugin package and install this as well. Now, if you're building for iOS, then there are different set of packages that you will need, and we have a dedicated video on that. You can find the link for that video at the top. Soon, we'll be downloading and importing 3D assets from Sketchfab, which is of .gltf format. And for us to be able to import this into Unity, we need one more package. So inside your package manager, click on the plus symbol, select add package by name, and here you need to type com.unity.cloud.glt fast and click on install. Alright, so with that we have all the required packages. Now we can download the assets. And the first asset that we need is going to be an image. Now, since we're going to use this image for image detection, we cannot download any image of our choice. There are some key points that you'll have to remember while selecting your image. So here are some of the points for you to refer to while selecting your image. But the key thing to remember here is you do not want to have a repeating pattern or too many feature points like barcodes. So for this video, I have chosen this particular image here from Pixel Stock. I will leave a link for this in the description. And next, we need a 3D model that we can spawn when the image is detected. And for that, I'm using this really cool animated Charizard model from Jimmy. Once again, you can find the link for this in the description below. And the final asset that we need is going to be the joystick pack that we'll be using to move the 3D model around. And you can download this from Unity's asset store. So once you have your assets downloaded, you can now import them inside Unity. I would highly recommend to maintain folder hygiene. So create a new folder called as assets. And inside this folder, you can import all your assets. And now to import the joystick pack, we can click on open in Unity and import this package inside our project. Alright, so with that, we have all the resources that we need. Now let's see how to set up our project for AR development. First, navigate inside File, Build Profiles. Select Android and switch the platform. Once that's done, navigate inside Player Settings and change the company name. Make sure you're on the Android tab, scroll down and select Vulkan as the graphics API and remove it from the list. Then uncheck multi-thread rendering and scroll further down below till you find Override Default Package Name. Make sure to uncheck it and check it back again to make sure that the package name matches with your company name and product name. Then make sure the minimum API level is set to 7.1. Scripting backend is set to IL2CPP and the target architecture has ARM64 enabled. So now with these settings, you will be able to run it on your Android device. Next, you have to navigate inside XR plugin management and inside the Android tab, make sure to check Google AR Core as the plugin provider. And with that, we have finished setting up our project. Now we can finally start setting up our scene. Now setting this up is fairly simple. You can select the main camera and delete it. Then right click on your hierarchy, navigate inside XR and select XR Origin Mobile AR. Now this will add the XR Origin game object with the XR Origin component. Now the purpose of XR Origin is to transform the objects and trackable features to their final position, rotation and scale inside the Unity scene. And as a child of the XR Origin, you'll find the camera offset and the main camera. Now along with this, we need one more component that manages the entire life cycle of the AR experience, and that is the AR session. So to add it, you can navigate inside XR and add AR session. Now to add image tracking, you need to select XR Origin, click on Add Components and add AR Tracked Image Manager. Now this image manager has a dependency on XR Origin, so make sure to add it on the same game object as of XR Origin. Now this component needs a serialized library, basically a reference to a single image or multiple images. And to create the reference image library, we can go inside our asset folder, right click, create XR, and select reference image library. You can rename this. I'll call it as Charizard. Click on add image, and here we can drag and drop the image that we imported. Now, if you want, you can also specify the size, but for now, I'm going to let it be at its default value. Next, select the XR origin again, scroll down, and now we can refer the serialized library that we just created. At this point, the tracked image manager will look for the detected image, and once the image is found, it will instantiate the tracked image prefab that is given here. But we're not going to do it this way. Instead, we're going to write our own script to see when the image is detected. And when it is, we're going to spawn a 3D model and also control it along with the joystick. So for that, let's go back to our assets folder and create a new folder called as scripts. Now in this folder, we'll create a new script and we'll call it as AR tracked image spawner. So let's open the script and I will see you in Visual Studio. So first here, we want to declare the packages that we'll be using, which is unityengine.xr.ar foundation. Then we can get rid of this default code over here. Now in here, we can start by declaring all the variables that you'll be using. So the first one we need is the Charizard prefab game object, which we'll be using to reference the prefab that we'll be creating inside Unity Editor. Then we need one more variable to store the instantiated prefab. We'll call it as Charizard. And finally, we need one more variable that we can use to reference and store the AR tracked image manager. All right, so now what we want to do is we want to get the AR tracked image manager component and listen to the events of when the images are detected. So this we can script inside the onEnable function. First, we get the AR tracked image manager component. Now here you'll see that it is GameObject.getComponent. What this means is that the AR tracked image spawner script that we have to attach it to the same game object as that of AR tracked image manager. Now if you attach it to some other game object, then it will not work. Alternatively, we can set this as serialized field and you can refer to it as well. Next, we want to listen to the events when the trackables have changed and call the onImageChanged function. Here we can write the function for onImageChange, which takes the parameter AR trackable changed event args and has a variable called event args. Now this event arg variable has all the data with respect to the image that has been detected, whether it is added, removed, the name of it, the size of it, etc. So what we want to do inside this function is to go through each of the new image that has been added, and we want to instantiate the Charizard prefab. And we want to instantiate it at the same position where the image is detected. And that's about it. Now you can save the script and go back to Unity. So back here in Unity, we can select the XR origin game object and add the script that we just wrote. Now this needs a Charizard prefab, so let's set that up. By the way, 87% of people watching our videos are not subscribed. If you found this video to be helpful until now, then please hit the subscribe button. It takes 1 second, costs you nothing, and it helps our channel grow. Thank you. Now back to the video. So to set up this prefab, you can select the model and add it to your scene and reset its position to 0. Next, right click on it, navigate inside prefab and unpack it completely. Then we can rename this as Charizard prefab. Now this is not a prefab yet. We'll soon convert it into one. But before that, as you can see here, it already has an animator component, but it does not have a controller and we'll have to create one. So for that, once again, inside your project folder, navigate inside the asset folder where you created all your assets. You can right click, navigate inside create, animation and create an animation controller. Then rename it as Charizard controller and open it up. Inside the project window, create one more folder called as animations. Open the child objects of this model. Select all the animations that are there, copy it, and navigate inside the animation folders and paste it in here. Now the reason for doing this is so that we have the flexibility to edit the animations if we want to. So now inside the animator window, we can create a new state and call it as jump. And for the animation, search for 20,150 jump 01 start and drag and drop it in here. Then create one more empty state and call it as hover. And for the motion, look for 20,000 default weight 01 and reference it here. Next, add a transition from jump to hover. And then finally, let's create one more empty state and call it as fly. And look for the animation titled 20,100 run 01 loop and reference it here. Once again, we can add a transition from hover to fly, but we want this to transition only when we are pressing the joystick and it's moving forward. For that, you'll have to select the parameters and add a bool type of parameter. And let's call this parameter as fly para. Then select the transition, remove the has exit time, scroll down and set the condition as param_fly to true. Now we want the animation to be set back to the hover state when we are no longer pressing the joystick. So we'll make one more transition which goes from fly to hover. Select the transition and remove the has exit time. And this time we want to set the condition as fly param, but set it to false. Now to visualize this, we can select Charizard prefab, and here we need to reference the controller that we just created. Then select the window, drag and drop it in here and press play. Now here you'll see that it enters into the jump state. It will jump from the ground and keeps hovering. and then we have set this to true, it's going to fly away. Now there's one thing that you might notice here is that when the animation is playing, the character is moving forward, which is not ideal. So we'll have to edit the animation a little bit. And to do that, you need to select the 20,100 run01 loop, select the origin position, right click on it and remove the property. And now when you press play and test it again, you will see that it's hovering. And when we set this to true, it's going to just play the fly animation. Now we can use the joystick to move it around. Now the next step is to set the right scale for our prefab. And how I generally do it is by creating a 3D cube, which is of size 1, which basically indicates it's 1 meter tall, high and wide. Set its position to 0. And now we can scale it to 0.1, which is 10 centimeters. And then we can select the prefab, make sure that it scales uniformly, and then scale it all the way down until it kind of matches the similar height of the cube. So once you're satisfied with it, you can select the cube and delete it. All right, now the next step is to add the joystick prefab that we downloaded and write a script to control our Charizard. So for that, first we need to create a UI canvas. Scroll down and set the UI scale mode to scale with screen size. Here, we want to set the reference resolution to 2160 x 1080, which will cover most of the smartphone screen sizes today. And then navigate inside Assets, Joystick Pack, Prefabs, select Fixed Joystick and drag and drop it inside the canvas. Now to adjust the position and scale of this, what we could do is change the aspect ratio from free to 16:9 landscape. And then you can select the joystick and move it slightly up here like this. And let's scale it up by 2 times. Perfect. Now we can go back inside Asset, Scripts and create a new script called as Charizard Controller. Now open this up and I will see you in Visual Studio. Alright, so first let's get rid of this code over here and declare all the variables that we'll be using. The first variable is going to be speed, which is going to store how fast the character is going to move. Then we need variables to reference the fixed joystick, the rigid body, and the animator component. And finally, we need one more variable to see if Charizard is flying or not. So on enable, we want to get all the 3 components. Now, since the rigid body and the animation controller will be attached to the same component as Charizard controller, we are using object.get component, whereas the fixed joystick is something that we need to fetch once the prefab is instantiated, which is why we'll be using find first object by type fixed joystick. Then inside the fixed update, we want to reference the values of the joystick's horizontal and vertical axis. And based on its motion, we want to calculate the movement vector and add a linear velocity to it. Now, along with the linear velocity, we want to rotate the character based on the position of the joystick. And we are able to achieve this with the help of this line of code. And the final thing that we are trying to achieve with this script is to change the animation state from hover to fly when the joystick is moved around. So for that, we'll be using the animation controller and setting the bool fly parameter to true when the X value and the Y value is not equal to 0. And when we leave the joystick or we are not using the joystick anymore, that's when the X value and the Y value will be equal to 0. And then we set the fly parameter to false. All right, so now we can save the script and go back to Unity. Here we can select Charizard prefab and add the controller. We can set the speed to 0.2 and then add the rigid body component and make sure to uncheck use gravity. And with that, we have the Charizard prefab setup. So we can go back to assets. Here we can select the game object and drag and drop it in here. Select the prefab from your scene, delete it. Then select the XR origin, scroll down, and here we can reference the Charizard prefab. All right, we're almost done. Before we can build it and test it on our device, there's one more setting that we'll have to configure. And that is to navigate inside assets, settings. And here you need to select PC renderer, scroll all the way down, click on add render features and add AR background render feature. Now do the same for mobile render as well. And that's about it. Now you can connect your Android device to your laptop or machine. You need to make sure to enable the USB debugging mode. Now, if you're not sure how to do that, I will leave a link for that in the description below. So once you have it connected, you can navigate inside File, Build Profiles, click on Open Scene List and add the open scenes. Then go back inside Android, click on Build and Run. Here, we want to create a new folder called as builds, and in here, give your file a name and click on save. Now it's going to take some time for this project to build, so I'll see you once that's done. All right, so the app has been successfully built onto my device. And now when I scan the image, you can see that the Charizard appears, and now I can use the joystick and move it around. Congratulations, you built your first AR application right from scratch. So what are the next steps? You can play around, you can have different buttons for different animations like how I've done here. Now, if you use this video to build something cool, make sure to tag us. And that's it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure to like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next one.